Good morning, afternoon, early lunchtime. I'll try to make this entertaining and quick, okay? I'm Commander Rhonda Grizzell with the Columbus Division of Police, and I'm the new Wellness Bureau Commander for the division. And it is a brand new concept that we introduced in 2019. I was a negotiator on our hostage negotiation team when I was a sergeant. I don't even remember the date that this happened, but also on the team were another sergeant named Greg Botker. And he's a really good friend of mine. We've been on the department just 6 weeks of separation that we went through the academy. I have seniority, by the way. But we were negotiators, and we were at an advanced negotiation class at OPATA, and a gentleman in our class was getting his master's degree, and he was talking about he was going to start a peer team. And this was back during our Chief James G. Jackson regime, and Chief Jackson felt very strongly that, you know, you pull up your bootstraps and you go to work, and any run that you go to, you should be able to handle by yourself. So he didn't really believe in two-officer cars. It was a very traditional point of view. I have a lot of respect for that in some respects, but you know, law enforcement has to evolve to be relevant. So we thought, well, that's a great idea to have a peer team, but that's not going to go anywhere if we try to propose it. So we just kind of let the idea go. And the reality is that law enforcement officers have been peer counselors to each other forever. So at the end of the night, you pull up in the parking lot down the street from your sub, and you see cruisers parked like this, right? That's peer counseling, right? Peer counseling. Sometimes, depending on who you talk to, though, your stories may end up at the roll call table or along the entire department, because everybody knows that rumors travel very quickly on a law enforcement, probably in any industry, honestly. But this is the only one I have a lot of experience with. So fast forward to Chief Distal Swag comes on. Mitch Brown, who is currently a council member, was our safety director at the time and came from EMS. That was his level of experience. Fortunately for us, the fire department had a peer team for 23 years. Our Comtex had a peer team for 20 years based on the critical incident stress management model. So how do you sell something to a police chief? You tell him the fire chief has it and he does it, right? So it kind of helped us. It was kind of an end runaround. I was a commander, deputy chief, he's a deputy chief now. Deputy Chief Bodker was a lieutenant, and he sees me in the hallway in the patrol office, and he says, "Hey, do you remember that idea for a peer team? Do you want to work on that?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So we started working. You remember Lisa Callender's picture? Mm-hmm. Reached out to her. She reached out directly to the director at the time, the safety director, which is something we can't do because of chain of command. And we presented this thing in 2012, August of 2012, and got approval for it. Why did we recognize a problem? We were losing people because of alcoholism, suicide, just getting mangled up in terms of administrative issues and losing their positions. And why does that happen? Because we have to look, we're just like dogs. We act like everything's okay, even if everything isn't on the inside. So by the time a first responder asks for help, they're a lot farther gone than the average person, okay? So we created this peer assistance team 2012 in August. We're trained in critical incident stress management through the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation. In the state of Ohio, if you have a team that's trained under that model and registered with the state, you have confidentiality protection. That is huge, absolutely huge, because now you can have these conversations with a peer on our list, and you know your business isn't going to end up at the roll call table, and now social media. All of the people on our team are carefully selected and vetted because we don't want the person that's known as a gossip to join our team. And they have the confidentiality protection. We partner very, very closely with Lisa Callender and her team at the Employee Assistance Program. It is crucial to have mental health involved, and we constantly talk about scope. We constantly talking about knowing when you're getting in over your head, when we need to make referrals. If you have a supervisor hat on, you can't have a peer hat on. You have to be someone's supervisor first. If they work for you, you reach out and get another peer involved. So our focus, we knew going into it that we had to change the culture of the organization, and the best place to do that is start with the recruits, because they're captive audience anyway, right? but they're also a lot younger and oftentimes more willing to entertain new ideas. So we do a lot of pre and post incident education at the basic training level, and then we also started training supervisors and then just the general police department population at the same time. We can respond one of 4 ways under the ICISF model. Group debriefing, which is a formal 7-step process, and those are reserved for way worse than normal incidents. It actually was initially designed for catastrophes, major catastrophes like 9/11, things like that. We've probably done less than 5 the whole time that we've been in existence. It's used very sparingly. A diffusing, if something really bad happens at work, I go maybe to the roll call that night or the next day and say, hey, that was a way worse than normal run. You shouldn't have had to do CPR on an infant who had a wet wipe stuffed down their throat, whatever it happens to be. You shouldn't have had to deal with that. Here are some signs and symptoms of stress. It's a normal reaction. We normalize it. It's normal to have these reactions, but if they don't start to subside within a couple of weeks, that's a sign to you that something could really be wrong, and you might want to reach out to a peer or to EAP. Crisis management briefing is very similar. It's just a little bit more in depth, but the vast majority of what we do are the one-on-one peer supports. When we bring new team members on, it is so incognito and under the surface, they are astounded to hear our numbers for one-on-one supports. Last year, we had 1,186 one-on-one contacts, and nobody's talking about it. So when we bring new people on, and they go, well, I really don't know that much about the peer assistance team, that is music to our ears, because we don't want people talking about it. So EAP utilizations have gone through the roof as a result of our partnership with them, which is good, because our whole idea is to bring these people to deal with these problems much earlier on than to wait until it's towards, so bad that it's really hard to dig them out. Our executive staff has really embraced this. It's not unusual for them to call me or commanders and go, hey, I think so-and-so is having a hard time. Is there a peer that we can get to reach out to them? So they're being more proactive, and it's generally accepted practice. And as a result of that, we proposed a wellness bureau concept it was in July, and it got approved. It was in March, and then it got approved in July. And I have that position. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what makes up that bureau, because it's not only internally focused to improve resiliency and the acceptance of mental health within the department, but it's also to provide wraparound services for our community members, which is a really new concept in terms of our approach to providing service to the public. But I think it's very necessary and very relevant. Our vision is to become the healthiest police agency in the nation, setting an example for others to follow. Our mission, to enhance and improve the quality of life for employees within the Division of Police, improving police response to the residents and visitors with whom they serve in the city of Columbus. Mick said it really, really well. If they're happy and healthy, their relationships are good at home, and they're dealing with the stress early as it comes up, and they have the skills and abilities to address that, they're going to provide better service to the public. You're not going to have as many complaints, uses of force, things like that. You hit the nail on the head. I identified these buckets to focus on to drive everything that I recommend in terms of wellness. So we have emotional, spiritual, social, physical, occupational, and financial. And I figure if I can give them initiatives in those areas, and I created a strategy where I talk about what I'm going to teach the recruits, the incumbents, and even the retirees, creating a transition program for them to try to set them all up for success. It's a lot to get off the ground, it's ambitious, but I feel as though I have the support of the Chief of Police to do that. A lot of it is going to revolve around training. So the new parts of the Bureau specifically are the ones that we've added in that circle. The other ones won't make a lot of sense to you. So the track lieutenant, it used to be called the mental health lieutenant. We did a pilot project with that. That person does all of the CIT training and coordination for our critical incident teams. We've embedded that in recruit training, so it's become a really big part of our police department. I changed the name from mental health to tracked trauma, recovery, addiction, and crisis teams lieutenant. He supervises, right now it's a he, The therapy dog unit, which is a brand new unit that we added. We have a sergeant and 4 officers with therapy dogs. It's a completely new concept. When the Franklin County Sheriff's Office started their program a couple of years ago, there were only 6 programs in the entire country. They trained us, and now there are almost 100. We are the largest therapy dog unit in the entire nation right now with 5 dogs. So it's pretty cool. Before I got the unit off the ground, I got Andy is the sergeant's dog from Pilot Dogs, and I had to foster him. I thought, you know what, buddy? You're going to start earning your keep, even though we're not official. I'm going to take you to work with me. So I started taking him to work. I tell you what, the first day I took that dog to work with me was the best day in 25 years that I worked on this police department. Every single person that I came across, their shoulders went down, they smiled, they sighed, and they were happy. Every single person I saw that day, no matter what they had going on, they were happy, and there's science behind it, so it's pretty cool. The Mobile Crisis Response Unit, we call them MCR. That was a concept that we also piloted, and the chief decided to not only make it permanent, but he expanded it by 1 position. We have net care crisis co-responders paired up with a police officer that is CIT trained. They work in the car every day. They proactively reach out to people that they know routinely have mental health crises to try to help keep them on the right track. And then they specialize in those calls for service when they're available to go out and try to help folks. We keep them out of jail, basically. I don't have the statistics with me, but if you look at our average patrol response and then the MCR units, overwhelmingly we're getting people help and keeping them out of the criminal justice system by making sure we're working with their caseworkers and addressing medication issues and things like that. We have a total of 6 of those officers that are responding. And then we also have 3 officers embedded with the REACT task force at Columbus Fire. That's to deal with opioid crises. They have social workers on that team as well to do wraparound services for the addicts and their family members. So that's my contact information. That was really fast, but I felt pressure to try to make sure I got it finished. Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with loss teams?
I have heard of loss, yes, and they do the QPR model. Is that right?
QPR could be involved in that, but QPR is a public suicide prevention 2-hour lecture. Loss teams were developed initially by a professor in LSU who said getting to the survivors of a suicide quickly will increase their chances of recovery and recovering faster. Just as physical trauma is too. So there are a lot of counties who have loss teams who are made up of a lot of people, including volunteers, who are alerted by first responders of suicide and will go to that and work with train to work with the survivors, while the first responders are obviously doing all their work.
Okay. So that's a possibility to maybe look at expanding what we have going on.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think Terry Russell's over the High Suicide Prevention Foundation has been very active with obviously suicide coalitions in the counties and loss teams.
He and I were on a committee with Attorney General DeWine a few years ago for training for APATA. So thank you for that. Thank you for that tip. Anyone else have questions?
Hey, Rhonda, will you tell me that stat you gave me about the interviewing with kids?
Sure. So we get a lot, this is touchy-feely stuff. That's not a good thing in law enforcement. Sometimes we're a little backward. So we've had had to do some convincing for the therapy dog program internally. But this is the thing that I tell them that sells the program to me and the devotion of the personnel. Here in Columbus, I heard this stat over at is it Center for Family, I can't ever say it right. Say it for me?
Safety and healing.
Yes. It used to be called the CAC. I still call it that. But I try to be appropriate in presentations. They said that if you have a child who's suffered abuse, and I don't know if they mean specifically physical or sexual, to me it doesn't matter, and they try to do the forensic interview on the child, they will disclose the abuse to an adult investigator 34% of the time. Take a dog, put the dog in the interview, it increases to 84%. So I tell cops to shut up because that solves the problem right there of justifying why we have that unit. And they can do many, many other things. The other thing they can do, because you start to pet the dog and the oxytocin is released, it disrupts the process for PTS and PTSD. I tell them that too. A lot of them, that just as much as they're talking smack about it though, they're loving on the dog when they see the dog and they smile too. It's all a game, it's all talk. Yes?
Hi, I just wanted to share a personal experience that I had. I had a trial, I think it was last fall, and Mattis, the FCSO therapy dog program, he came in and he helped a victim who had mental and physical disabilities. And it was one of the most wonderful things that I ever personally witnessed. This woman came in, was literally scared to death, shaking like a leaf. The minute Mattis came in, he sat right by her the entire time, and she was able to communicate and testify. So these programs are real, they work. In fact, Officer Thompson is coming in with Ollie either tomorrow or Wednesday, because at least in my courtroom, I'm going to try to make the therapy dog program very visible and accessible.
Outstanding.
It really works. Yeah.
We're here for you. We want to be utilized more. We're still getting our foot in the door, but Mattis is our hero. He did all, as Franklin County Sheriff's Office, Deputy Metz, did a fantastic job. They're still a part-time unit, so we're trying to help shoulder some of that load for them. Some of what Mattis can do has come with almost 3 years of experience. We're still new. We've been doing it 7 months. The dogs get it though. They understand exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
What I'd like to do is, and I'm trying to do this with Mr. Thompson, and I'll talk to you more afterwards, is because trials are rare, I mean, they're not going to go on all the time, but maybe having a day in which the therapy dogs are there in the courtroom, people come in, they can meet the therapy dogs, the handlers, the officers, so the community knows about it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tool to have. It really is. And I've even seen them post photos with suspects that are waiting to go into court. We're here for everybody. They don't discriminate. They want to help anyone that they literally sense those feelings of stress, and maybe they can smell cortisol, I don't know, but they know who to go to. They just know. They'll pick the right person out of a room full of people and go up. I've seen it at our own PAT meetings. I brought my dog in. My dog Shiloh, he's a therapy dog, but he's not a CPD therapy dog, although he impersonates one sometimes. He also helped train him. He was a distractor. I knew that there were a couple people that were having some issues at our peer meeting, and he walked right up to both of them out of a room full of 30 people.
Wow.
They know. Anything else? Yeah?
I am a consumer of mental health services, and I used to be a frequent flyer. You know what they are. I just want to say that listening to your presentation, I appreciate your language. You have the right language for mental health. And the thing about the dogs do what people can't.
Yep, they sure do. Thank
Kudos
you.
for the dog.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're here to help. So we're trying to do things a little differently with law enforcement. I think we have to continue to evolve. We haven't evolved, but Chief Quinlan has hit the fast forward button, and we're here, and we're going to step up to those challenges. So, thank you.